What happens when daytime TV turns into a minefield of truth, privilege, and power with no safety net? What unfolds is a confrontation so raw it rattles hearts and headlines alike. Picture this. Meghan Markle, the Duchess turned media powerhouse, walks onto the set of The View, greeted by a studio buzzing with anticipation. The cameras are rolling. The audience holds its breath. And at the center, Joy Behar, star co-host and queen of no-nonsense commentary, poised with a smile that barely masks the sharpened edge, waiting to speak. Today isn't about a fluff piece. It's about confrontation, control, and whether Meghan can stand the heat when the questions grow personal. But first, before we dive into every gut-wrenching moment, hit that subscribe button, like this video, and drop a comment. Are you Team Joy or Team Meghan after tonight's fallout? From the moment Meghan took her seat, tension hung in the air like a storm about to break. She wore her trademark polished smile, a tailored blouse, understated jewelry, an image of calm control. But Joy, with her trademark wit and instinct for disruption, leaned forward and set the tone immediately. Meghan, Joy began evenly, her voice cutting through the studio hum. You've come on this show speaking about silencing, trauma, oppression, yet you've made millions from those stories. Netflix deals, Spotify specials, tours around the world. Isn't there a contradiction between being silenced and profiting off your pain? The moment hit like a lightning bolt. The audience gasped. Even the co-hosts paused mid-thought. Meghan blinked, the smile held, but beneath it tension simmered. She cleared her throat, her polished tone unwavering. Joy, using those platforms doesn't negate the fact that I was silenced. I didn't choose to weaponize my story. I chose to speak when I was not allowed to be heard. Joy didn't blink. Fair, she said, but calling it not being heard while launching a million-dollar media empire. That's a PR move, not a confession. If you really wanted privacy, you'd walk away, yet you lean in every time the camera starts rolling. Meghan's composure faltered. Her posture stiffened. She glanced at the other co-hosts, Sunny with a furrowed brow, Sarah fidgeting with her note cards, but the spotlight was on her and Joy. This isn't performance, Meghan replied softly. It's survival. It's speaking for people who can't. Joy leaned in. But millions of viewers can and do speak for themselves. So you tell me, when does this activism stop and the business begin? The audience sat up. It felt like a test. Could Meghan remain steadfast under intense scrutiny, or would she crack? Meghan's voice shook. She took a breath. Some truths cost more than silence. And yeah, the cost sometimes shows up in headlines and profit statements. But that doesn't make the truth any less real. Her eyes glistened. The audience murmured. Joy held the moment, her expression unreadable. Then, with practiced calm, Meghan stood up. When your questions start from a place of doubt, not curiosity, that's when I'm done. The chair scraped. She walked off, tears threatening to break her calm veneer. The cameras followed her into the aisle. Even without words, the moment carried weight. Joy sat perfectly still. She took a sip of coffee, the studio hush collapsing into the next segment. But the tension lingered, soaked into every pixel, every headline, every whispered reaction. And once the clip hit social media, it didn't just trend, it detonated. Millions watched, replayed, debated. Was Meghan a victim of calculated questioning, or a woman too scripted to stand genuine challenge? Within minutes of Meghan Markle's walk-off, the world exploded. Social media platforms became instantaneous battlegrounds. YouTube clips of the confrontation racked up millions of views, while hashtags like #JoyVsMeghan and #ViewDrama trended alongside sharp headlines across major news outlets. Nothing had gone as planned, not tonight's guests, not the producers, not even Meghan's meticulously crafted image. On Twitter, the division was stark. Critics of Meghan accused her of fragility. can't handle one tough question, and she runs. Defenders rallied, urging emotional empathy. She was triggered. Joy crossed a line. Within the View's commentary circles, tensions mirrored those in the kitchen. Was this a moral stand or a misstep? Backstage, the atmosphere was thick. The producer war room buzzed with urgent phone calls. One senior producer told me they never expected Meghan to storm off. Their original plan was to have The View appear candid yet respectful, a chance for open dialogue. They never imagined the conversation would turn into an interrogation or cause their guests to flee. Word is, Meghan's advisory team had been warning producers beforehand. They wanted softer, strategic questioning, something that would let Meghan talk about her work, not her contradictions. When Joy hit hard, eyebrows rose, but microphones were already live. By the time producers realized the shift, it was too late. There was no time to intervene and redirect. Pulling back from that chaos, Meghan retreated behind closed doors. Her PR strategist, an insider from her Archewell circle, urged her to apologize or release a statement. Others, however, argued suppression would look weak. They eventually crafted a message that balanced defiance and civility. The Duchess came here to discuss her advocacy work, but was met with hostility. She remains dedicated to amplifying voices that are unheard. It landed in press inboxes just 20 minutes after her departure. Yet at nearly the same moment, The View issued a statement defending Joy's questions as tough but necessary and confirming that no guest has walked off in show history. Until today, the distance between the two messages reflected a growing divide between Meghan's tight circle and broadcast journalism's unfiltered energy. Media fallout was swift and varied. Insider published a headline, "Meghan Markle too fragile for talk shows?" Variety framed it diplomatically. Daytime TV show sparks debate over journalistic rigor and sensitivity. Overseas, tabloids asked, "Royal on royal war in NYC." On talk radio, commentators mused, "When you critique your platform, make sure you can handle the critique." Inside the palace, officials took note. Though Buckingham Palace doesn't comment on such matters, a source close to the monarchy told me it was reminiscent of past dramas, a moment where media tactics backfired spectacularly. For many observers, the clash was compared to Meghan's earlier controversies, including the 2021 Oprah interview, when she exposed family truths. That moment had created shockwaves. This one, many felt, signaled a turning point. As the sun set on Chapter 2 of this saga, Meghan withdrew completely from public view. Planned events, interviews, philanthropic launches were either postponed or quietly reshuffled. Inside her Montecito home, staff were said to be evaluating mission statements. Is Meghan the powerful activist people rally for, or just a figure too emotionally vulnerable to be pushed further? Meanwhile, tidbits leaked from Joy's camp. One insider told me Joy was already preparing a segment for an upcoming episode, expected to delve into emotional resilience and public scrutiny without naming Meghan directly. "This was cringe TV," Joy reasoned. "Emotional debates happen all the time. Guests walk out. But what didn't happen? They release a statement like this." That they did, it signaled Meghan was rattled. Yet, amidst the chaos, a new narrative began to emerge, not one of failure, but of opportunity. A former talk show coach named Emma Clark-Jones shared in The Hollywood Reporter that slipping under pressure didn't end Meghan's career, it offered room for reinvention. Respected guests had stumbled on air before, and some rebounded stronger. According to Emma, the key lay in authenticity. That's where the Sussex pivot might have been born. Meghan's team apparently realized that if she showcased her intentions, rather than simply defending against criticism, she could flip the narrative. Insiders say they started drafting deeper, more vulnerable content. Long-form essays, small group interviews, and an intimate profile on journalist Pia Miller, all launching next quarter. But for now, the question lingered, could Meghan take a step back, admit discomfort, and still emerge stronger? Or had the carefully curated image unraveled beyond repair? By the time evening hit, the confrontation between Meghan Markle and Joy Behar had turned from a trending clip into a full-blown cultural litmus test. News panels were already dissecting the moment like it was a presidential debate. Evening pundits on Fox, MSNBC, and even CNN covered the fallout with the gravity of a political scandal. Everyone had a take. It wasn't just about a single interview anymore. The incident had ignited conversations about media ethics, cancel culture, emotional resilience, and the lingering weight of royal entitlement in American society. What happened between Joy and Meghan wasn't just a clash of personalities, it was a cultural collision. One side represented unfiltered American skepticism, and the other, a post-royal figure still trying to find her footing in a society that demands authenticity over legacy. At first, Meghan's core supporters stood by her. They flooded TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter with posts defending her vulnerability. Fan accounts shared montages of her past struggles, framing the clash as a cruel ambush by Joy and The View's producers. Many saw the interview as a setup, a media trap disguised as daytime conversation. But even among her fans, something was changing. Underneath the public support, a quiet current of disillusionment began to stir. People started asking, why does this keep happening? Why does every interview, every opportunity for Meghan to speak her truth somehow spiral into conflict? Was it truly about being silenced, or was it about controlling the narrative too tightly? This moment, the tierce, the walk-off, the silence that followed marked a shift in how even her most devoted followers perceived her. They weren't turning against her, but they were beginning to expect something more real, less polished. "We love her," one viral tweet read, "but at some point, she has to stop running and start reckoning." Meanwhile, for Joy Behar, the story took on an entirely different dimension. Known for her acerbic wit and unapologetic tone, she was no stranger to on-air tension. But this was different. She'd clashed with politicians, celebrities, even co-hosts, but Meghan was royalty. And despite her own audience largely backing her, there were whispers inside ABC. Had she pushed too far? Producers scrambled to manage the optics. Behind the scenes, ABC execs held emergency PR calls, weighing whether they needed to soften Joy's image or lean into the viral wave. The network ultimately decided to own it. "This is what real television looks like," a statement from ABC's media desk read. "Unscripted, unfiltered, and fearless." The phrase "fearless" became part of the next morning's headline cycle, signaling where The View was headed next, doubling down on confrontation as entertainment. Meanwhile, the media-savvy Meghan Markle was forced to sit out a battle she didn't control. Her team, realizing the scale of the backlash, pivoted. No more defensive press releases. No more tweets. Silence would now be their weapon and their shield. But in the vacuum of Meghan's silence, the world kept talking. Think pieces emerged from both sides of the spectrum. The New York Times published a front-page culture article asking, "Can the Duchess thrive in the arena of American honesty?" While the Daily Mail ran with the more biting headline, "Diva Duchess can't handle the heat again." The drama was even spoofed by late-night hosts. Jimmy Kimmel quipped, "Who would have thought The View would finally break royalty?" Barbara Walters is somewhere smiling. Stephen Colbert, ironically once a soft interviewer of the Sussexes, remarked, "It was less of a talk show appearance and more like a hostage negotiation." In marketing circles, the fallout was described as a case study in misalignment. Meghan's brand, rooted in grace, empathy, and advocacy, had become intertwined with victimhood, defensiveness, and tightly controlled narratives. Experts in celebrity branding began to speculate that the Sussex model, once a masterclass in global rebranding, was now crumbling under its own weight. A former Netflix exec anonymously told Variety, When you brand yourself as both victim and visionary, eventually people ask which one is real. Even sponsors and philanthropic partners took note. Invitations to key galas reportedly stalled. Speaking engagement interest declined. Archewell's social channels saw a dip in engagement, a rare sign of fatigue in an audience typically energized by scandal. Yet perhaps the most surprising shift came from within the royal family itself. While they remained officially silent, unnamed sources close to the palace described the moment as a cautionary tale. One aide noted that Harry and Meghan have had more opportunities for public redemption than most people get in a lifetime. But every bridge can only hold so much weight. The palace wasn't gloating, but they weren't reaching out either. This was no longer a family matter. It had become a reputational implosion on an international scale. Back in Montecito, Meghan's team knew something had to change. The soft focus interviews, the carefully scripted documentaries, the sanitized podcasts, they weren't working anymore. America wasn't just a market, it was a battleground. And if Meghan and Harry were going to survive in it, they had to shift from playing defense to embracing something new, vulnerability that wasn't rehearsed, pain that wasn't staged. And perhaps most of all, they needed to stop acting like the world owed them understanding. Because after this episode, the world had begun to feel like it was owed an apology. Still, the question loomed, could they bounce back? Could Meghan stop the spiral? Or had the public finally grown too weary of royalty recast as rebellion? The day after the episode aired, America woke up to a media frenzy. Meghan Markle's tearful exit from The View had become more than just a trending clip. It was the kind of moment that media scholars would dissect for years, an emotional implosion caught in HD, raw, unfiltered, and impossible to ignore. The headlines were brutal. Meghan crumbles under pressure, one read. Another blared, royal meltdown on daytime TV. Even People magazine, historically gentle in tone, ran the headline, Meghan Markle's breaking point. The tabloids didn't just smell blood, they were gorging on it. Yet it wasn't just the press that turned critical. The real shock came from the general public. Across social media, what had once been a stronghold of support was now a battlefield of divided opinion. The hashtags told the story. #TeamJoy, #ViewDebacle, #MeghanMeltdown. Some viewers were sympathetic, blaming Joy Behar for ambushing Meghan with an aggressive line of questioning. But many more were tired of the perpetual victimhood narrative, tired of the dramatic exits, and tired of the tension that always seemed to follow the Duchess of Sussex wherever she went. In Montecito, Meghan's inner circle went silent. Her usually active PR team, the same one that coordinated headline-grabbing magazine covers and meticulously crafted interviews, offered no official statement. There were no Instagram story reposts, no tweets addressing the issue. The Sussex digital presence, once a PR machine, fell into radio silence. But behind the scenes, panic had set in. Meghan and Harry's media advisors reportedly held back-to-back meetings for 3 days straight, trying to figure out how to regain control of the narrative. The initial plan was damage control, a soft interview with a friendly outlet, maybe Oprah again, or a carefully timed podcast drop. But something had changed. This time, no one seemed interested. Journalists were skeptical. Networks were hesitant. The Sussex brand had lost its shimmer and, worse, its momentum. Meanwhile, Joy Behar, ever the firebrand, was basking in the storm she helped create. During the next live episode of The View, she didn't apologize. Instead, she addressed the audience with her signature smirk. "Well, folks, looks like I poked the royal hornet's nest." The crowd erupted in laughter. She leaned into the moment, framing herself not as the villain, but as the voice of American truth. It worked. Viewership soared. The episode featuring Meghan became one of the most watched in the show's history. ABC executives were thrilled, even if the moment had been unscripted chaos. Ratings had spiked, ad revenue surged, and The View was back in the headlines for all the right or wrong reasons. Yet for Meghan, the emotional scars ran deeper than the headlines could show. Close friends later revealed that she had been blindsided by the tone of the interview. She walked into that studio thinking it would be a tough conversation, sure, but she didn't expect it to become personal warfare, said one insider. Another revealed that Meghan was genuinely hurt, not by the public reaction, but by what she perceived as betrayal from a show led by women who often advocated for empathy and compassion. As the days turned into weeks, public interest slowly moved on to other scandals. But the stain on Meghan's public image remained. What had once been a tale of royal escape and reinvention had become a cautionary story about overexposure, miscalculation, and failing to read the room. Desperate to pivot, Meghan and Harry took a step back from public appearances. Charity events were quietly postponed. Planned media interviews were shelved. Even their highly anticipated Netflix follow-up project was delayed indefinitely. Sources inside Netflix hinted that the streamer was re-evaluating the direction of the Sussex deal. At the same time, back in London, the royal family held their ground in silence. No statement was made, no comment was issued, but their lack of response spoke volumes. For years, the palace had been accused of neglect, of failing to support Meghan when she needed it. Now the roles had reversed. The former royals were alone, no crown to protect them, no institution to absorb the fallout. In the following months, Meghan made only 2 public appearances, both at charity events where she refused to speak directly to the press. Gone was the woman who once boldly claimed she was finding her voice. In her place was a quieter, more careful figure, still graceful, still composed, but different. And then, almost 6 months after the View disaster, a surprise. Meghan released an essay, not through a tabloid or talk show, but on a personal blog she'd quietly launched called Reset. The title of the piece? When the Spotlight Blinds You. It was raw, unpolished, and deeply introspective. She admitted to misjudging the climate, acknowledging that sometimes our pain can look like privilege to others. She didn't mention Joy Behar by name, nor did she attack the media. Instead, she wrote, "I've learned that speaking your truth is only half the equation. The other half is learning how others hear it." The essay went viral, but not for the usual reasons. This time, it wasn't about drama, it was about accountability. And while not everyone bought into it, many respected it. It was a glimpse of the Meghan people had once rooted for, unfiltered, human, and finally aware of how perception shaped her story more than intention ever could. As for Joy Behar, she moved on with the same unapologetic swagger that made her a mainstay on American television for decades. When asked about Meghan's essay during a red carpet event, she shrugged and said, "Hey, I've cried on this show too. It's called being honest." And perhaps in the end, that's the paradox. Meghan, in her quest to control her story, forgot that America doesn't always want a queen. Sometimes they just want someone real. The View rolled on. The cameras kept rolling. But for Meghan Markle, the curtain had closed on another chapter of her very public transformation. What comes next remains to be seen. So what do you think? Was Meghan unfairly ambushed, or has the public finally grown tired of curated vulnerability? Let us know in the comments. Smash that like button, and don't forget to subscribe, because in the world of media, the next twist is always just one headline away.